What's up, everyone? It's been a long time
I shouldn't have left you.
since our last video on Staccato versus the OA Defense 2311. This is the OA 2311 Pro Elite 20,000 round review. So I have put 20,800 rounds approximately through this gun in the last 13 months. I was a very early adopter of the Pro Elite, so naturally I had some struggles there, as you might have with any brand new manufactured gun, especially one that is hammer fired and has a lot of complex working and pieces to it. So I'm going to go into my experience, why I think it's a great investment, and why I'm sticking with it as my primary competition range and defense pistol. So let's get started. When OA Defense first announced that they were coming out with a hammer-fired gun that was compatible with SIG P320 mags, I was already interested. I was just getting into hammer-fired guns at that time. I would go on to get 2 Staccatos and compete with those and train with those. Excellent shooting guns, a good experience. However, there was still an issue with magazines. And the magazines, although much more reliable reportedly than the old SVI versions and the old Staccato versions before they became the company Staccato, there were still some issues around tolerance, around drop, around lockback that I wasn't fully satisfied with. So I decided to explore the OA Defense. P320 magazine is, to me, a step up from a Glock magazine in terms of its metal body and its reliability. Not that it's more reliable than a Glock magazine, but it's just as durable. I prefer metal body magazines, and I'll get into some of that reasoning why later. The OA Defense 2311 Pro Elite was my second gun with OA. I had the Compact Pro, which has become my EDC, my everyday carry for concealed carry, and that gun always performed excellent. So when I heard they were coming out with a metal framed version of the 2311 Pro, I was totally on board. I was a very early adopter. In fact, this gun is one of the first 10 models of the OA 2311 Pro Elite. Now, it did have some struggles. This gun was extremely tight slide to frame ratio. So when I first got it, I almost couldn't rack it. And it didn't originally fit the P320 magazines, but it did fit all of the aluminum AMAG magazines by Magpul that now come with it standard. That wasn't a big deal for me. I got some extra AMAGs through OA Defense and continued on. The problem with the tightness was solved by me. They gave me the option to swap it out. They said it was still within spec, but it was very, very tight. I said, no, that's going to result in, and they agreed, a very accurate gun because the tolerances are so extremely tight, but not quite out of spec. So I decided to shoot my way out of the problem, which is typical for me. Once I got it broken in, the performance was phenomenal. Very accurate. Already has a great trigger out of the box, had the great medieval style grip texture that is super aggressive, like that very much. Optic mounting system is great. It comes with 4 plates, RMR, DPP, RMSC, and I forget the other one. But there's also an SRO plate available if you want it. I ended up using a Vortex Defender XL. We won't go into that. That thing did not work out for a variety of reasons, mostly not holding zero. End up with a 507 comp and this glare guard that goes on top of it by OptiGuard. Pretty cool product. Forces me to keep it target focused, or else I end up looking at a big chain link fence through the optic. So once I got past those initial issues, I had a great time shooting the gun. It became my primary. I was shooting the Compact. I was shooting the Pro Elite in competition. Made some great strides with it. Made great progress with it overall. Around 15,000 rounds, I started to see some half cocks and some minor malfunctions. So I sent it down to the factory. Then I started learning a lot more about what's happening with OA Defense and the production. So the production team moved from Nevada to North Carolina late last year, about September, October of 2025. That's not the only difference, the location. They're also manufacturing all of their internals for the guns in-house with fully CNC parts. Prior to that, they were using metal injection molding parts, MIM parts, as it's commonly known, even though it was a highly focused metal injection molding process, resulting in great quality guns. CNC is just a vastly superior way to produce parts that are precision engineered and precision fit. So what they offered me was, since I was having some issues, was to send the gun down and they would install brand new fire control group with their CNC manufacturing process. They did that, I got the gun back, and it has performed even better. Now, this is not to say that everyone's going to notice the difference between MIM parts and CNC parts in the same gun. You may not, but having shot this gun constantly and put, 15 plus thousand rounds through it over the course of time, when I got it back, I could immediately tell the difference in the crispness of the trigger, the hammer. When we first got these guns, they did not have the skeletonized hammers. They were not quite ready for production yet. The OA was still testing them to make sure that the hammer shelf was robust enough to last several thousand rounds because it was so thin and so precise, which is understandable. So that got installed along with the other CNC factory internals. I got it back. It ran phenomenally well, very accurate, very precise, very shootable, as it always was. Later, about another 2,000 or 3,000 rounds, once I hit around 19,000, I had a problem with the magazine retention dingus, they call it. It's a piece that retains the magazine release, pins it into the frame. That part went bad. It was plastic. It sort of slid out and snapped. So they sent me another one. I wasn't able to install it myself because of the tightness of this particular frame, I suspect. And so I sent it back down. They installed it, gave me a brand new grip module, and put all my parts back onto it, and I got it back. So now I've been running it another almost 2,000 rounds and no issues at all. If you buy one, you probably won't see these problems because that magazine retention dingus has now been changed to a metal part, so the plastic won't shear off anymore. And this just goes to demonstrate what OA's commitment is to quality work. They've upgraded their guns. People were not complaining about how the gun shot or how they ran in the first place, but they saw an opportunity to make them even better. U.S. manufacturing down in North Carolina, so they did that quietly without a whole lot of fanfare. So let's get to the meat of the review. How does the gun shoot? The gun shoots great. The trigger starts out around 4-ish pounds and ends up breaking in around, I'd say, 3-ish pounds, just over 3. Very crisp trigger, very little take up. It's a short trigger on the range of trigger lengths. It's considered a short, right? Long would be way out here, medium is about here, and this is a short trigger. That is the small amount of take up right there. It's just sort of bouncy and springy. That is your release, and then your reset is right there. It's very strong, very positive reset. You can feel the click, you can feel it pushing you back out, which allows you to run the gun at speed. Magazines are super reliable. This is one of my favorite parts about the OA because I had problems with my staccatos and similar guns where a little bit of dirt, a little bit of grime, these do not mind. They will still go in the gun. It's better to keep the mags clean if you can, but if you miss something, if you wipe it down and you don't quite get it, these magazines are not going to complain. The gun is not going to whine and bitch and hear all that crazy amount of grinding when you insert it like you would with some other guns. So that is awesome. The 17 rounds, these are dummy rounds, 17 round mags fit flush. They are very stiff to go in at the very end. They're very stiff to insert. So for competition, I highly recommend the extended 21 round magazines because they go in obviously with less effort, and that's fairly consistent with just about any gun. I still do use the ported barrel because I am not concerned about classification or anything like that. So I'm shooting open when I shoot this in competitions, that doesn't bother me at all. But you can always get an additional barrel. I have an additional one if I want to use it for limited optics. I sometimes use it, but because I have to adjust the zero between the two, I'm typically too lazy to do that. My recommendation would be this. If you like this gun, go ahead and get it. You probably won't see some of the issues that I saw in terms of that extreme slide to frame tightness. The process has been matured over time and they have better control of it. You definitely won't see the issue with the magazine retaining piece. That's become a metal piece now, so it's integrated into the grip module. I think this gun is worth it, even though I had minor struggles along the way. For 20,000 plus rounds in the course of 13 months, I think it's performed excellent. So I highly recommend that you get it if you like hammer fired guns, because again, you can adjust the sear and the trigger weight just like you could with any other hammer fired gun. They don't recommend that you adjust it below 3 pounds because you could run into some reliability issues and start getting some light strikes and other issues happening. 3 pounds is just fine for me. I probably don't own anything that's below 2, and it's because the trigger is so short. I feel like there's less of a difference between a 3 pound and a 2 pound because the pull itself is so short and crisp. So that may mitigate the problem a bit. Again, mounting system is great. Don't have any complaints about the gun. I have largely abandoned most of my other guns at this point to use the OA. And then last notes for those of you who are not immediately familiar with the gun. So this is a hammer fired gun. It takes SIG P320 mags, as we've said. It has ambi controls. It's got ambi slide release, ambi safeties. I have the compact safeties, the same ones that are on my Pro Compact on this gun. That makes it an easier fit for some of your duty holsters like Safariland and some of the other holsters that are level 2 and 3 retention for this to fit in, because if you have those really big wide wing safeties, it's not going to fit in some of those holsters. OA is planning on coming out with some aftermarket ledges or gas pedals, as you could call them. There are ledges on this one. They come stock. They're talking about making some bigger ones and some smaller ones, and then ones that sort of climb up the slide. If you're that type of shooter that likes to have your thumb up high on the slide, that will protect it from interrupting the action. The recommended break-in period for the 2311s is about 500 rounds. I say it's closer to about 1,000. I started to see trigger weight really reduce right around 850 to 950 rounds once I broke 1,000. The Pro Compact Pro dropped from 4 to 3 pounds. This one dropped from 4 to about 3.2, 3.1. So about the same deal with both. Again, the triggers feel great. These are, for a note, the only guns that I have, I think, that I shoot completely stock. I haven't changed anything on these other than adding the flashlight, adding the optic and the OptiGuard glare cover. Haven't changed anything about these guns. So that's it. If you have questions, drop them in the chat and I'll do my best to answer. But OA Defense, Omnis Audentia, great company. Full disclosure, I paid for both the OA guns that I have out of my own pocket. We do have a discount code. Apparently we can't list those on YouTube and some other platforms anymore because it results in a strike. So get in contact with us or personal message or DM me on Instagram or YouTube if you want that code. All right, that's it for us, and we'll see you next time.